Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. So I know that many of you listening have been waiting for this show. We're going to be speaking in the first hour to James Van Praagh about what it would be like if you grew up in heaven, and the whole thing about mediumship and talking to dead people and that whole fun topic. And in the second hour, we're going to have our good friend Nick Redfern back on. He's going to be talking about the real Men in Black. Quite a combination, but should make for some interesting conversation. Don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com and the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. Please do sign up for our newsletter to keep apprised of who our upcoming guests are. You can do that by going to www.justenergyradio.com. You can also access our almost 5 years worth of archives with excellent programming like you're hearing today. So let me tell you about James and get him on the air. Not that you all don't know who he is, but I'll just, do the formal thing. James Van Praagh. His natural and easygoing style would lead you to believe that James is chatting with a friend on the telephone, not communicating messages from the grave. James is a survival evidence medium, meaning that he's able to bridge the gap between two planes of existence, that of the living and that of the dead, by providing evidential proof of life after death via detailed messages. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, James Van Praagh. Hi, James. How are you?
Hi, Rita. I'm good, thank you very much. I love the way you say my name, James Van Praagh. It sounds like it's from the Midwest. It's Van Praagh, like the capital of Czechoslovakia.
Well,
That's how I remember
if you are a regular listener to the show, you would know that I trash the best people's names. It's just...
I'm used to it from an early age. Believe me, people would call me everything with that spelling. Nice to be with you, Rita. Thank you for having me.
I won't call you late for dinner, I promise.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So I just want to, and I don't normally do this, but I'm looking at the switchboard, and it is just glowing like crazy. And traditionally, we do not open up the phone lines on this show, and we're not changing that. And so if people are calling in just wanting to get a reading, sorry, not today. Hate to disappoint you. However, James, you were telling me that you were doing a special event on December 20th where people, if they wanted to get a reading, they could get one from you?
Yes, I will do the best I can on my website, which is vanpraagh.com, and I'll say hello to everybody on there now who's in my chat room. On the chat room, we have special events, and on December 20th, I'm going to be doing a holiday chat. And if people go to my website, which is vanpraagh.com, and they register their email, they can get in the chat room, and on December 20th, I'll be doing a lecture and also doing spontaneous messages for people in the room. And it's very easy to do that, actually. People might think it's difficult, but it's easy for me. I just tune into
to do it via chat?
Via chat. I just tune into the energy, and I put myself in a receptive state and see whoever comes into my consciousness. So it's really interesting. Very interesting. You never know who's going to pop up. Yes. So that's a way for people to reach me if they'd like. And then I'm probably going to be doing some private readings next year, so that'll be also noted on my website when that happens. We're still figuring out the details on that, but I'll probably be doing that as well.
Well, and actually, when we were visiting before the show started, you said something about coming to Dallas next year sometime?
Yes. Right now, we're putting together a tour for next year, and the cities that we're going to be going to are Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Minnesota, all through Florida, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and the Midwest, and St. Louis, and Seattle, and San Francisco, and L.A. Actually, we're starting L.A. next week in January, 2 weeks in January, and it's limited to 100 people. And that's also my website on my calendar page. People can look at that. But it's limited to 100 people, and it's a 3-hour event. So I'm starting the tour in January. Yeah, all over.
You know, you name that list, and you're kind of making me tired just sitting here talking.
And then I'm going to Peru in June there, Rita. I'm going to Peru for the summer solstice. With I have 3 spaces left for people. Yeah, me and a shaman down there, a wonderful shaman. And we're bringing 45 people for the summer solstice for ceremony. So it'll be quite an amazing, life-changing event.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
I have a good friend that lives in Peru and has been doing a lot of work with the elongated heads. And, it's just fascinating, the stuff down there.
I know from going to Brazil, when I went to Brazil for many times, just the energy of the land is just so incredible and so telling. And I know that Peru, of course, is going to be incredible. I'll have to wear a hat to keep my brains in my head because it's going to be just an amazing vibration. I can just tell already. It'll be an amazing vibration and experience.
I'm going to ask kind of a really weird question. I mean, normally you're working with a group.
Weird questions are the best.
I mean, normally you're working with a group of people, you know, doing readings. But when you go to a location like somewhere in Brazil, a historic site, do you have, you know, I'm going to say ancestral spirits that
Totally. Bands of spirits, bands of energy that are around that sacred space, around the sacred space, are very, very much so. And I'm very attuned to their vibration. A quick story. I went to see John of God about 15 years ago down in Brazil, in Abidjani, and I brought 30 people down there. And this is before he was really well known. And I remember we're sitting in the reception hall, and I began to see a whole level of doctors and nurses from spirit all above the whole audience, just getting ready to work the vibration and work the energy of the room, work the energy with John of God. So it was pretty incredible, and that happens to many places that I go to around the world, the different energy. And I see spirits there, I see the ancestors, and also, of course, you see the memory, the emotional imprint of a place, which is also very, very interesting. And I share that with people as I'm seeing it.
Something that I'm asked a lot, and I'll ask you the same question. So, do you see do you see ghosts everywhere or spirits everywhere? Or are you able to kind of filter them out and access them when you choose to?
And it's funny because I know what the real question is. Do you see spirits when you're in the bathroom or you're having an intimate time with someone?
Well, I mean, that's what people
want to know
me,
that.
But
yeah. They're human. No, the answer to that is a couple of things. Number one, private time is reserved for private time. They will respect your private time. So nobody, and they could care less. They have so much else going on where they are that stuff really doesn't mean much to them. And what I do as a medium, and when I first began as a medium, developing as a medium, I developed with a British medium who helped me and really assisted me in learning the proper way to develop as a medium. And in doing so, I learned how to open up my energy centers, my chakras, how to open up my mind, if you will, to the higher levels of spirit, how to tune into those levels, open myself up, and receive. And then at the end of my session, the end of my work, I completely shut down. I learned how to close down, bring the energy down, and kind of cut myself away from that way of thinking, that way of being, that place of receptivity. And it comes with a lot of practice. And people that do mediumship really need to learn that and learn, because I have found these days that there are people who take classes in mediumship, and they think they can just go out and be a medium. And it takes a lot more than that, because you're dealing a lot with energetic fundamentals, with the body, with the energetic body, the light body, the emotional body, the mental body. And you have to learn how to properly ground and center, open, and close down. If not, you're really opening up yourself to a whole world, all levels of unevolved spirits to all as well. So they've got to be very, very cautious of that.
And see, I think that's a really good point. I mean, one of the topics that we talk about on this show is like ghost hunting. I mean, I'm part of a ghost hunting team, and they're always asking me, well, if I go into this haunted house, will I have some spirit attached to me? And it's like, I don't think so.
Yes, they will. If they don't properly protect themselves, they certainly. And unfortunately, I see that on television. I see that a lot, where the people just think they can just go into a haunted place, a place that's disturbed, and get rid of the spirit, and 1, 2, 3, and have no remnants come back to them. When the truth is, that spirit will attach themselves to them, or they will find a vessel. And if someone is weak-minded, let's say, they can easily get to them and influence them. So you really got to know what you're doing before you go into a place like that, or do any kind of ghost hunting or ghost touring. I wrote a good book called Ghosts Among Us, which really helps people with that, learning about that.
Okay. So how did you get into this business in the first place? What led you to want to become a medium?
Well, it's funny, I don't call it a business, but I guess it is a business, I guess you'd say. But for me, it was yeah, it's hard to describe what I do. People said, what do I call when I see you? Is it a seance? Is it a demonstration? Is it a session? I said, just call it a experience there, because that's what you can call it. It is a large seance. But when I was a little boy, I used to see spirit all the time, just like in the movie The Sixth Sense. I would see spirits all the time around my school, around my house. But they were always very positive spirits. I'd never seen negative spirits like portrayed in that movie, The Sixth Sense. To me, they were always loving and very positive. And as a child, I didn't judge. Children don't judge, and they haven't learned to judge yet. So fortunately, I believe it was my soul's plan, I came back to a family where my mother was also very, very intuitive, highly psychic. My grandparents on both sides were. And when I was 7 years old and I said to my mom, when I was saying my prayers at the bed, Mommy, who are those people with the lights on around them at the end of the bed? And she said, oh, those are God's angels. They'll always take care of you and protect you, so you have nothing to be afraid of. And I've never been afraid. And that was, my childhood is really like that. It was just natural, very, very natural to me. I knew when things were going to happen before they happened. I just knew things. I knew I'd be very well known. I didn't know how, but when I was 3 years old, I was walking to nursery school with my mother, and I said, Mama, I'm going to live in California one day. And she looked at me, and I didn't know what California was. And it's weird, but here I am. So I've always had this ability. And then in my teenage years, it kind of sloughed off or went away, or I didn't pay attention to it. And I was really just a normal, average, everyday person. And then in my early 20s, I went to a medium from England, and he looked at me and he said, you're a sensitive, you're a medium, and the spirit world are going to use you. You will be an ambassador to the spirit world, and you are going to help change the consciousness of this planet. And I thought the guy was completely nuts, because I just came from New York. I was a cynical New Yorker, and I thought this is the land of fruit and nuts, and this guy is totally wacky and crazy. And he went on to predict these things, which happened exactly 2 years to the day that he said they would happen, these visions I would have. And that was over 30 years ago now. So the rest is history.
It's history.
Yeah, because when I started doing this, they were going to lock me up. But, now everybody has experience. It's so accepted. It's so mainstream now. I mean, look at all the ghost shows and the movies and books and so forth. So I have helped to change the consciousness with other people. We help to change the viewpoint, if you will, perspective.
Well, unless you live in Texas. But I didn't say that.
Well, I find that people often ask me, they say, listen, I'm living in this ho-dunk place, I'm living in this very Christian-based place, or I'm living in this very unacceptable place, or whatever it might be, where they're closed-minded. And I always say to them, well, you got to go where the darkness is, because light illuminates the darkness. So your being there illuminates the darkness, or brings a new mindset, or new awareness, or new energy to that space. So you need to be there. We need to have light workers around those places.
I figure I just am bringing a certain amount of comic relief to the whole thing.
And that's exactly right. And that's what brings the vibration up. The comic, me too. I mean, I'm a comedian. I'm a comedian. And and laughter is the best medicine. It really, really is. So.
When you're communicating with spirits, how do you receive the information? Are you visual, auditory, multimedia?
Great question, and one that many, many people would like to know. And every medium is different. I should say that at first. Every single medium you see out there receive things very differently because, of course, every person is different. So my skills and my abilities are very different than someone else. I'm able to see spirit clairvoyantly. I will see them as a full person standing next to somebody, or the spirit will project into my mind something about their vision. Let's say they've had a scar on the right side of their face. They will show me just their face with the scar, so I'm able to relate that information to the person receiving the information. I'm also clairsentient, like most people, even who are listening, are mostly all clairsentient. And clairsentient means clairsensing. So we sense the personality, we sense energy, and people can relate to this when you walk into a room and you sense the energy of that room, or you meet a person, you sense the energy of that person. So that's clairsentience. I'm also clairaudient, which means that I'm able to hear spirits speak to me, and I hear them not with voices necessarily like, hello, how are you today, but I hear them with thoughts that have words. So that's the way I could describe it, thoughts that have words. Like we think, I have to go to the store and get some milk. I will hear that in my head. The other day, I was doing a message for a lady, and I said, her daughter came to me very, very clearly and projected into my consciousness the sense that her mother had a picture of her in a Bible in the section of the Corinthians. And the mother said yes, and she picked it up from under her chair at the auditorium, and she goes, yes, here it is. That was a thought that spirit girl projected. And it depends on how successful the spirit is. There are some spirits that are great at communication, especially if they're emotional, especially if the type of death they had was something very, very different, very sudden perhaps, or something very incredible about the passing. And also personality. If they have an outgoing personality and a sense of humor, I'm able to pick them up really, really well. Because a spirit, when they come through to a medium, they really have to use the makeup of the medium. So if the medium is a funny person and the spirit is a funny person, it works out really well. If the medium is a very critical-minded person and the spirit coming through is that way, then they'll be able to relate to that type of spirit. So it's very interesting how the communication works.
When you're doing your seances, they call them circles here. I don't know.
Yeah, I call them spirit circles. Yeah. Talking to dead people is fine too.
Yeah, I like talking to dead people. I don't know. It just doesn't seem appropriate to say that.
Because no death. When they say dead, no one's dead. The living people are dead, I find. I find the people on this earth walking around are dead, but not the spirits. They're very alive.
You have these groups of people. You were saying earlier, it's the ones that you have upcoming is limited to 100 people. But when you have that group of people there,
yep.
I'll make the assumption that everyone isn't going to have somebody visit, or everyone isn't going to get a little mini reading. And
nope.
So how do I mean, I just have these visions of, the spirits in this little duke out fight of who's going to get your attention first.
That's more like Rocky.
Yeah, it's like,
what happens?
Get out of the way. I mean, but
really. I only had it once happen in New York. The hardest audience I've ever had was in New York, where I was once in the Westbury Music Fair, and I brought through a lady's mother, and I acknowledged it was her mother. And first we have to establish the link. Indeed, that it is her mother. This is her name. This is the type of death she had. This is the time she died, the age that she died. And I remember a girl, and I was connecting with this woman's mother, and from the left side I heard an audience member scream, "No, that's my mother. Come to me." And I said, "Oh my goodness, how rude." And it wasn't her mother, it was the one I was working with, but I said, my goodness. So what happens is when you go into a room like that, let's say it's an auditorium or a theater for like 1,100 people, which I just finished doing in Palm Desert the other day. So that's a lot of people. And at first I let them know that what we're experiencing is in a group dynamic. We're doing this as a group because physically there's no way I can read 1,100 people. That's impossible. But what happens is my spirit guides and the guides of the spirits that will be speaking really do work out ahead of time who will be coming through to me, who's able to come through to the closer to my vibration, if you will, okay? And they also will pay attention, the guide, to the type of message which is going to become relayed, because the type of message which is relayed needs to benefit every single person in that audience. And I'll tell you, for 30 years of doing this, every single message I've brought through, people in the audience can relate to it because everybody is human. Everybody experiences life, experiences death, has lost somebody. Everybody knows about forgiveness or guilt or, should-haves, would-haves, or could-haves. So it's very interesting with the types of messages that come through. people can definitely relate to it, and that's how we do it, and we do it as a group dynamic. And I'm learning as I'm doing it, and the audience is learning. I'm a teacher first and foremost, and my work here is to teach people about spirituality first and foremost. Like the first half of my show, I'll go out there and I'll talk for a good 40 minutes about this work, like we're doing today, how it works, the foundation. I have to give them a foundation of spirit communication, because if I was just deliver messages, they would have no value in a way. They would lose a lot of that value. So the first part of the show I talk about this work, and because a lot of people, it's brand new to most people. A lot of people, believe it or not, Rita, we've been doing this for a while, you and I, and a lot of people still is brand new to many, many people. So you have to indoctrinate them slowly and in a very safe way and a very protective way.
Have you ever been surprised by the messages you receive? I mean, especially you've been doing this a while.
Every time. Every single message that comes through, I'm shocked, I'm surprised. And people ask me that. They say, God, you've been doing this 30 years. Aren't you over it? Are you jaded? I said, no, because every single message is brand new, and every experience is brand new, and the skill of the spirit communicator is, I love when there's a good communication. It really makes me feel great. So the other day, and you never know what's going to happen. Like the other day when I was doing this Palm Desert out there, I was doing 1,100 people. The last reading of the day was a girl, and I said, there's a woman here, she's 22 years old. I said, she can't breathe. I assumed she killed, I said, it's a suicide. And anyway, this lady in the audience did exactly what it was. Said the name Carol, yes, exactly. And she, of course, says, that's my daughter. She was 22 when she died. She hung herself around the tree. I came and found her because she was pregnant and her boyfriend didn't want the baby, because I picked up also those ingestion of drugs. And the boyfriend injected her with some kind of a speed, some kind of a drug, into her belly, so the girl went out and hung herself. Now, I don't get tired of hearing that, and that's a pretty amazing situation, don't you think?
Well, it's kind of like this kind of Peyton Place thing. It's like, okay, well, that was...
I'm better than a National Enquirer. I really am. But then the amazing thing was, now here's the amazing thing. So I brought through that spirit, and then I said, please come backstage, and I'll talk to you, and I'll give you my books, and we'll talk further. And she goes, can I ask you one question? I was like, oh, my God, here we go. How is my son, Ricky, that killed himself? Is he around? So she had 2 sons that completed suicide within 3 years. So, I mean, you never know what you're going to receive. That's why it's never old, it's never tired, and it's always helping people. So never get tired of that. When I do get tired of that and it becomes old hat, then I quit. Then I stop doing it.
I mean, I'm still stuck on a woman having 2 kids commit suicide. I think I'd be kind of taking it a little personal by then.
Well, what an amazing experience that she has to go through. And if we look at this earth as a schoolroom, and there are many, many lessons, all different types of lessons to learn. She got a hard lesson. She got a real difficult lesson, because losing children, to me, I think is one of the hardest physical lessons we have to learn on this earth. And to learn 2 of them. Now, we don't know why these things happen, but maybe in the future, maybe perhaps their passing will help somebody else. So that lady might understand this work and get involved in it, and maybe then she'll be able to go help other people. Because I've run into parents who've lost, a couple came to my book signing once, they lost 5 children, and they were in their 80s, and they said, we know that our life's work is to help parents who've lost children. That's why we had to go through the loss, because how could we help others if we didn't know the experience? So you never know why. It's pretty amazing.
Well, and that's what your new book is about, Growing Up in Heaven, isn't it?
Correct.
About
my new book
the
is Growing Up in
parent-child
Heaven.
connection?
Yes, it started out that way, I'll tell you, Rita. It started out that way. And that's what Spirit told me, at least, and then they booby-trapped me.
Don't you love it?
Love it. Because for months I would see children running around my office, and spirit children, and running around different events. I'm like, what is going on here? And my guide said to me, they're going to help you write your next book. I'm like, really? And it's going to be a book for parents who have lost children, because that is the hardest physical experience and lesson to go through. So that was what the book was intended, and the book was about, actually. And as I was writing this book, our spirit was writing this book, because I just sit there and just write. I meditate before I write, and I spirit come right through and just start writing. I know the stories that are going to be put in the book, because I've used them. I write down all the readings I've done. I always write them down when I get home to keep them. And I kept a whole jar of ones for children for years. And now I knew that this was going to be a children's book. I never knew I was going to use those readings. Anyway, I started writing the book of Spirit, and it was about a child who passes over into the spirit world and what's the experience when they pass over. And it became very, very strong about the child experience. But as it was going on, the realization was, many of the responses were, I'm a soul. A child is just my past, this recent life. But I am a soul being, and I've had many, many lifetimes. You only remember as the last personality of the soul of this lifetime, but we've shared many lifetimes together. So the book started morphing really into the soul, and with the soul experience, the soul fabric, the soul family, soul mates. And so that's really what the book ended up being. It's a kind of a manual of the soul and our connection with each other as family and friends as soul groups. So isn't that interesting?
Well, maybe I just sit there and go, I'm just reporting it. I don't make this stuff up. I'm just reporting it, so don't shoot the messenger here.
Exactly. Yes, so, I use that every day. I use that.
Well, let's talk about that concept of soul. Is there a difference between the concept of spirit and the concept of soul?
I like to not get caught up in semantics per se. So, like people say, what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? I say, well, really, it's just semantics. I mean, titles are titles, but everyone can use it differently. A ghost, to me personally, is a spirit that's earthbound. Those have not passed into the light. Like the show that I created, Ghost Whisperer, that was based on those spirits who don't go into the light. They're earthbound. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. Okay, that's reality. So that's how I determine ghosts from spirits. Now, the soul and spirit, again, it's interactive. I mean, we are souls, we are spirits, we are one in both. So to me, it's whatever you want to use, whatever someone's comfortable with. Soul, when I say soul, for me, from what I feel from soul, it's much bigger. It's much more the awareness, the consciousness. As a soul being, I'm much more aware. For me, the spirit is just this personality from this past life. That's how I delineate the two. But really, there is no difference between a soul and a spirit.
Okay. I mean, I just kind of want to follow this concept of soul. When
Sure.
you're interacting with, and I'm going to use soul because I like that.
Yeah, let's use souls. That's great.
With the soul of someone that has passed, do they have a personality? Like, how do I want to phrase this question? From life to life, it's like, there's our personality when we're alive, and then we die, and we go to wherever we're going to go, have that life review process, which I'm hoping we'll have time to maybe touch on a little bit.
Oh, we should. Really, it's important.
Okay. And then, we're on the other side, but do we still have a personality? I think a lot of people have a belief that, once you're in heaven, you're like this little angel being and you don't have a personality anymore.
Let me just, from my book, I'm going to even tell you this because there's I do distinguish between the two. So the soul is not the same as spirit. These two concepts are distinctly different. The spirit is the ethereal counterpart of the physical body, which I said to you, remember, that's like personality, and our etheric body, whereas the soul is our entire essence. Now, I believe that we can use the analogy that a soul is like a diamond, and I believe that the soul comes back to goes through many, many lifetimes. And I think they experience life on many, many levels, not just this physical earth, but I think there are many solar systems and galaxies and forms of life and vapor and gas and liquid. So I don't want to limit life. I think life is limitless and God is limitless. So I think that like the diamond, each of these experiences create facets to that diamond. And it gets larger and gets brighter and more colorful with the more experiences it has. So the soul personality is built upon, if you will, from lifetime to lifetime, from experience to experience. How is that?
Perfect.
Good. I thought that'd be easy for people to understand because it is a high concept, but that brings it right down to earth because people can understand the diamond. They can understand looking at a diamond. They can understand the facets, the colors that come out. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to share something with your listeners. When I was in Brazil, I did the ayahuasca tea. It's called Santi Daime religion. And it brings you on a journey, shamanic journey. And I'll never forget when my guides came to me and they said, the closest thing we can compare a soul to is a diamond. And they said, and the closest thing from the physical level you can compare color to are really stones, crystals, natural stones of the earth. Those are the closest to the real colors of things. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you
By the way,
mentioned
I hang prisms in my house a lot. On my tree, I have a wish tree in my front of my house, and it just hit me just to hang things there, just to remind myself that I'm a soul, always growing, always learning, always changing. And I have this reminder every day, and I look at my tree, and I have this wonderful crystal there, and it just brings in the light. And just when I see that, it reminds me again. So that's something for your listeners to use.
Well, and I think it's important for people to realize that we're not just this physical body, and that, when we're looking, I know this is kind of a hard concept to just kind of put into a little box, but, there's not just what's happening in this lifetime. There's what's happening in this lifetime, but then there's this eternity that we're dealing with. And even while this lifetime might be good or bad or challenging or not challenging, it's where that's moving us in our forward progress in time in this big picture of what's going on.
Yes, it's very good insight you have. It's hard for many, many people to understand the concept that we are outside, that we are more than just this physical shell. It's so hard for people to open up their minds to the realization that this is just a physical vibration, and we're in a three-dimensional world. Therefore, we vibrate in the physical body at that three-dimensional world. But there are many dimensions. There are many levels of energy, okay? Just like, it's so funny. When I'm getting, it's so funny, interviewed by, I'll say, a television person, a television host, who's really unaware or unawake, if I say. And they'll say to me, how can you do this? I don't understand how you can just get these visions or these sounds. I said, well, let me ask you this. How does your television image of you go out to millions of people? How does that happen? I don't see your face in the sky. I don't see the image of your show on the sky. So how do they get it in the television sets? And they cannot even answer because they know nothing about their industry. What happens is that image is in just like cell phones as well, and we have all different waves around us of energy. That image, that visual image, is vibrating at such a fast rate of speed beyond the physical vibration that it's vibrating so fast, and it goes to the television set, which is attuned to that vibration, just like a radio. And it's the same thing with spirit. They're all around us. There are many, many dimensions that they're vibrating at, and they're very solid and very, very real. And they come back to this physical earth, and they can walk through walls, and they can make knocks, they can do things, but they're not of this vibration. When they talk of the three-dimensional world, they'll often say, oh, it's so hard to go there because it's so slow and it's so heavy. They often describe it like quicksand. It's like walking around a quicksand. So no one in 30 years, I've never had one spirit come back and say, oh, I really miss that three-dimensional earth world. I really miss how I walk around there and had troubles and problems and so forth. So never had that. So it's just, love, thought. Thought is also energetic. It's outside of us. So it's real. We feel things. We do feel things. So just because people can't touch it, they think, okay, it doesn't exist, which that's sad, but, it is what it is. We all do what we can do to open people up.
So I was saying earlier about the ghost hunting thing. I was being interviewed on a show, and the guy said, well, what do you think ghosts are? And I said, well, some of them are spirits that, have died, done the life review, and then they come back. And his comment was, no, because once you go to heaven, it's kind of like you're locked in there, and you can't ever leave, and only demons can not be in heaven. And so,
demons, be careful.
Yeah, they're just demons. But in your experience with your work, do you find that people that are dead come back and visit us and hang out and watch the game with us sometimes?
It's so funny. Not only do they find they do that, they're doing that all the time. Because remember, we have to think of this in a different way. We always try to apply physical laws, the three-dimensional laws, to another dimension. Now, we can't do that. Because we, in this three-dimensional physical world, we have to go from California to New York. We have to get on an airplane to do that. Not in the spirit dimension. In that dimension, you can be there in 1 second just with a thought, just with your thought that transports you. You can also be in several places at once, believe it or not. A part of your being, of your essence, of your soul, can be in several places at once. You can be visiting your sister in, New York, or you can be in Texas with you, or someone in California, all at the same time. Because, again, time is not relative to that dimension. They're outside of time, so time doesn't mean anything to them. Now, I know that, Rita, from my experience, when a spirit passes into that light, it goes to that vibration, that they have no longer any, how could we put this to you, the chains of this earthly vibration are cut. They don't need to be here. Why would they go back here when they can go to this most incredible, splendid place? Okay. Let me just throw things in perspective, because I worked a lot with a lady by the name of Marion Kowski, and she's a ghost hunter, or a paranormal investigator, I'll say, when we did Ghost Whisperer. And I believe her, I connect with what she was saying and what her experiences have been, in that when we leave the physical shell, there are those beings, those people who have a mindset of the earth, that this is it, that's all they're going to have in life, there is no death, there's no heaven, this is it, when you're dead, you're dead. And many of them don't want to move from that mindset, and they'll stay close to the earth. Or let's say if someone was raised very religious, and let's say that they died, and they've done things in life they're not very proud of. So, and they see this light, but they think, well, if I go to that light, I have to stand through God and be in judgment and go to hell and burn up. Well, they're not going to go into that light and do that. They're going to hang out around the earth. And also, there are people that can now be curious, or they're very curious and go around and look at people's things and go around visiting people. So I find those are earthbound spirits. I also find places that might be haunted with what's called emotional charges. If something happened very emotional, let's say with a passing. Let's say, I know the Civil War was huge with emotional charges, because these young kids, the mindset of them did not expect to die. So they're still going ahead. And it seems because there was no time, they kind of get caught up with that emotional charge, and it seems if they don't realize they passed out of that body, that they keep on reliving it over and over again. It's like this, this reel-to-reel tape that keeps on playing over and over again, and they go back and experience that. In my book, Ghosts Among Us, I talked about the seance that I was at with a very famous medium from England named Leslie Flint, and there was a young man that came through, and Leslie was a physical medium where the voices actually would appear, and a young man from the military came through. I think he was a sailor, and he said, I'm holding onto a rock. I know that if I let go, I'm going to die. So his last mindset, the experience he had with him was that, and he got stuck in that time. He got stuck there. So that's many times I think these soul imprints, these emotional imprints, are indeed hauntings, people call them. That's my
Okay, but I'm going to go back to my question. But people that have gone through the review process, they can come. Yes. They're not like locked in heaven. They can come to one of your group things.
No, let me tell you. You're so funny. Yes and no.
Wait a minute.
Yes and
okay,
no.
so
yes
you're doing one of your group things, and like you talk about in your book, there's someone standing off to the side of the person you're talking to.
Correct.
Aren't they there, quote unquote?
They are there. So they're in a spirit form there, and then what they do in order to come down to my level, to this three-dimensional world, they have to mentally think, I'm going to slow down my vibration. And when they do that, it lowers them down to this three-dimensional world, at which point they have to stand next to me and work with my guides, and the guides will help them, assist them how to project a thought, an image, a feeling. So for them it's very difficult because this is not their natural world, but the more emotion they have, the easier it is to project and for the medium to pick it up. Now, they have often said that being in this three-dimensional world is like us going down to 8 feet of water, sitting down at the bottom of the pool and having a conversation. It's not their natural state of being. So they have to go back up again to the other dimensions and come back down. Many people in an audience might feel very tired after the event. Why is that? Because the spirit is using their energy to anchor them to this three-dimensional world. That happens. So that being said, Rita, and that's how usually it works, I will say this. In the Bible it says, my Father has a house with many mansions. And what I believe that to mean are the various spiritual levels which exist, which are many levels. And you go to that level based upon your thoughts, your words, your deeds. And we have your life review, which we're going to just touch a little bit on, if that's okay. When we pass over, one of the first things that happens is a life review. And because that dimension, there is no time, if a person lived to 80 years, they can experience every single incident here from this earth that they had 10 times, 20 times, 30 times stronger. Not only from their point of view, but from the person they were talking to or acting with, or something happened with them. If they walked into a store and they yelled at the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper went home and yelled at the family, and so forth and so on, that spirit, when they have the life review, they will see how their one word, their one thought, was responsible for their rippling effect that behaved to that person and went to that person and that person and that person. And depending on the type of thought that they gave out and created, that's their heaven or hell. If they did bad things, they weren't very good things, they came from a hateful place, that's pretty rough because they have to try to forgive themselves. And you can imagine what that's like when there's no time. But if they did lovely things, did the best they could, was conscious, was aware of other people's pain, tried to demonstrate compassion and peace wherever they could, then there's nothing to worry about. So I hope that makes sense.
It sounds like one of those blessing and a curse things, because I know that on the other side, you have a chance to let go of all of that stuff and make amends and experience the healing from it.
That's exactly right.
But then there's the thought of, like, going through it and looking at all the crap you've done.
Exactly. And what is this doing? And the work that I do, Rita, which is I say, well, talking to the dead people, that's only part of what I do. Really what I'm doing with that work is demonstrating that there is no death and that you are responsible for your life on this earth, how you treat another human being, because we are constantly creating with that God light, that God spark which we are, and God constantly creates. How are you creating your life? How are you treating another individual? When you pass out of the physical realm, you're going to see how your thoughts and your words, your actions affected another human being. And then you have the sense that we're all one, we're all connected. So really by hurting them, you hurt yourself. And then what happens? Well, maybe there's a karmic situation in which the spirit will say, I'll have to come back and relive that experience, so next time I'll have a better understanding of how to treat somebody. So it's very interesting.
So we have a question.
It's a lot to throw
out
there. Yes.
Okay, so this is from Deep Blue Ocean. They wrote in very big font, so I can read it from where I'm sitting. Can everyone experience some mediumship activities suddenly and for a short period of time, even if they are not mediums?
Yes, very much so. Yes, very much so. Every single person is intuitive. And what does intuitive mean? Intuition means into the soul. It is the language of the soul that we are all born with. We're born with that ability, that sensitivity. Otherwise, we wouldn't survive as babies. So there is a strong soul sensitivity that everyone receives something. And you will receive something in the most subtle ways when you're in the shower, when you're driving the car, when you're reading a book, because you're not in the way. Your critical mind isn't blocking the natural creative energy, that intuitive sense. And the more that go with your gut, that wonderful expression, go with your gut, very, very true, because your gut is your Geiger counter. It's I call it your place of knowingness, your center of knowingness. And when you listen to that intuition, you'll be right. How many times have we all gone out there and said, if I'd done this, God, if I only wished I'd done this, if I just listened to myself, I should have listened, I would have been right. So we troubled with that, but it happens to all of us. And the mediumship indeed can happen. It's harder than, because intuition is, everyone has that. The mediumship, definitely people can come through like that. There are more people, this is interesting, because as we come back onto this earth, just like there are souls that are born with the ability to play the piano, everybody's born with that ability to play the piano, but not everybody is a concert pianist. So there's some people that are born with more of an ability or a sensitivity toward mediumship, if you will. And one last thing is that every psychic is a medium, but not every medium. No, every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. So you have to have the ability. A medium has the ability of intuition, very, very sensitive, very good, strong, skilled intuition. But on top of that, they're able to interact with higher energies, if you will.
See, and people ask me if I do that, and it's like, no. Talk to me about your body. I'm great there. Talking to dead people, not so much. James,
which is great.
I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if
you
can hear me chuckling back here a little bit. I'm trying to not laugh hard, but I swear to God, did you go to my lecture and copy it? Or maybe I went to the lecture you gave. Maybe we're like hanging out on the same astral plane, because your examples are even like almost they are parallel to examples I give in my presentation. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you're stealing my stuff.
Well, Rita,
or maybe I'm stealing your stuff. I don't know.
It's not. We don't own it. It's just truth. The funny thing is, the introduction with that gentleman, when he started speaking about energy and vibration, I'm like, oh my God, I've come home. This is what I speak about all the time, and that's exactly what it is. It's all energy. Exactly. It's all energy. It's all truth. It's all truth, which is fabulous.
When you're doing sessions, do you ever ask what it's like on the other side?
Yes, I do. And it's difficult. It's difficult because, I'm a Virgo, for those who are listening, I'm a Virgo, and I'm very analytical in many respects and detailed, need details. So it's difficult for me sometimes. Remember, Spirit can only give you what you can understand, yeah? So if they say to me the color of red, my reference of red is what I see on this earth. But my reference of red in the other dimensions, I don't have that necessarily. So I'm, again, what I mentioned earlier, we're applying physical knowingness, physical traits, physical descriptions to higher dimensions. So that, with a caveat of that, I will tell you that Spirit has said to me, when they first pass over, in many instances, they will go to a place which looks just like their mother's house, and they will remain there with their mother in their mother's house. The mother is there. They've talked about being in hospital settings when they arrive, not like we have here, open air, open ceiling, pure energy. It's like the sky is pure blue. That feels just a perfect temperature, lovely music in the air. They never talk about darkness. It's always light. There's no nighttime. They talk about wonderful buildings over there, buildings made of mother of pearl and higher halls of learning, and wonderful creative buildings there for people to learn or bring out their gifts of the spirit, which music or art or dance, any creative type of ability. There are libraries over there. There are schools that children go to, universities, specialized types of schools. I've had adults have come back and children say, over here I can do whatever my heart desires. That's why it's called heaven. And if there was a desire, let's say on the earth, where someone wanted to take on oil painting, but they didn't have that opportunity, in the spirit world they'll be able to have that opportunity to do that. And for a mother or a man who didn't, a father who didn't have children, but they really desired children, they would make great parents. On the other side, they were able to take care of those children who passed over without parents. They'll be surrogates. And that's something which is great. So, and animals are always met. We're always met with our animals all the time. Animals come, and we're always met by those we love who love us. No one ever dies alone. There is no pain in death. Leading up to death, if it's an illness or something like that, which is physical hurt and pain, yes. But when the spirit leaves, there's no pain whatsoever. It's very easy. We do it every night. We go to sleep. and we're always met by those loved ones, always. No one ever dies alone.
And that is just such a cool thing, because I think that's one of the things people are so afraid of, is that, when they die, that they are going to be alone. But it doesn't sound like that's the
Not
case.
at all. Oh, not at all. Fear is the unknown. People are afraid. Fear is just the unknown. The more knowledge people have, the more power they have. That's why I say to people, read my books, read other books, do lectures, whatever you need to that speaks to your soul, that resonates within your soul. You should use that, because there is no death. There is no such thing as death, and I prove it every day.
When there are people that are, I'm going to say, terminally ill, does the veil thin for them where they can actually start to see on the other side and start the welcoming process with? Oh,
very much so. Not necessarily even a terminal illness, because this is very interesting. My father-in-law passed over last week, which is very, very interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I knew that it was, of course, going to happen. I knew a year ago that left by himself, he probably would fall down, and that would be it. And what happened was, his wife had died 2 years earlier, and I know he missed her. He desired her. He's 82 years old. They're married for over 60 years, and he really, really missed her. So he set up this desire to be with her, and I don't call it a death wish, but it definitely wanted to be with her. At the same time, what happened was when he fell, and they found him in the restroom, and he was still alive. He was very much alive. And they brought him to a hospital, and he was okay, and he was lucid, and things were fine. But I knew he was going to go. I knew it, because I knew he was given the opportunity to choose either to stay or to go. And 2 days later, just slipped into a coma and then went within an hour. So I do believe that. I do believe also that, of course, there is a time to be born, a time to die. I do believe that. But there is no pain. There really isn't. And I think that this man, we have what's called the silver cord. And the silver cord is connected to the spirit body, to the physical body, in the solar plexus. And with that silver cord, like I said earlier, we leave our bodies at night and we go to sleep. Your spirit will leave that body, and you'll travel for miles and miles and miles in the astral world, the Summerland, the heaven world, whatever you'd like to call it. And many times people report, I had a dream of my loved one. It was so real. It was more than a dream. I know it was. Sure it was. It was a visitation. It was a crossover, because your spirit was there. And what happens is you come back into the body in the morning. I call it like the spacewalk, because that's really what it reminds me of. At the time of death, that silver cord is severed, and you're free. There's an opening of consciousness and awareness. Now, it might take a while to wear down that silver cord. So when there is a terminal illness, it wears it down 2 months before, 3 months before. It does wear down. And toward the end, exactly what you said, toward the end of the existence here on the physical earth, the veil will get closer and closer and thinner, and they'll see their loved ones standing in the room. They'll reach up for them. They'll talk about them. They were there. It could be a year ahead. My father used to speak about my mother all the time. He'd wake up from a nap and say, I met your mother in a park, but you can't go. It's okay. So, they do see these things. It's exactly right. The veil does get thinner.
And I think, for people that have aging parents, it's something that you can kind of pay attention to. I mean, not to scare the crap out of yourself, but to kind of know that they're maybe getting ready to make that transition.
Yes, and I think that people shouldn't fool themselves and should realize that people are going to leave the physical body. They are going to die. Everybody dies. They can't save them. But the best thing to do is to help them over. Even if they're talking about seeing their dead sister. Oh, really? What did she say? Is she there for you? And just encourage them a bit. When my father passed away 2 days before in his room, he was in a coma. I saw all these family members standing around the bed, and it was his time to go. When it was his time to go, Dad, it's okay to go. Mom is here, and so is here, and so is here. And he made a communication with me, which is interesting because he was in a coma. But you see, the consciousness is not just contained in the physical body. It's outside the physical body. And he said to me, I have to make sure you kids are all right, and then I'll go. So we said to him verbally, we're all right, we'll hold together. He died like 10 minutes later. So it's very interesting that you can help them over to the side as well. You certainly can. They need your permission.
Her mother was dying, but she was kind of like hanging on this little bit. And I said, well, it's like she can't let go. There's stuff that she needs to kind of process through to let go. And so I suggested that she take like the photo album. And her and her sister sat on the bed, and they went through the photo album and talked about old times and the fun they had, and it gave her mother the feeling, like that she was appreciated and loved and, it was all good. She passed the next day.
Isn't that fabulous? That's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work at a hospice, and I used to help people pass. And it's a joyful event, and it's a very special event. I'm so honored when that happens because there is a sense where sometimes you see the mist actually leaving, the spirit leaving, but there's such joy from the other side of life because they're getting them back, and there's such a reunion and a reception. And Spirit describes, and talk about it in Growing Up in Heaven as well, that when they come there, there's these halls of reception where people have not seen each other for years and years and years of time, earth time, and they such connections. Imagine the love that sets up when they meet them, that hall of reception. It's almost like going to the airport and meeting people, but it's even bigger and grander than that. And they realize also at the same time that there's no death, that they're actually not dead. They're away from that terrible body that they were in. It's like a heavy overcoat.
I plan on leaving a good corpse myself.
Well, the many times people talk about it's a heavy overcoat. I just want to get rid of it, and there's no interest. People often ask me that, and I say, no, there's no interest in the physical the body. It's just a shell. It's worn out shell, a worn out car, and a heavy overcoat, old shoes, and they love to be free of it. I'll tell you, love to be free of it.
Well, we're getting close on time. Let me ask one more question. When you're working with doing these sessions, do you ever find out information about a child or an adult's death that was otherwise unknown?
Yes,
to
very much
medical
so.
people, law enforcement, that kind of thing?
Yes, very, very much so. I used to work with the police on a private level where I no one knew about it publicly, but I used to work kidnapping cases, and I used to be able to tell them where the child was, because the spirit would tell me where they were located. The spirit of the child would come to me. When I'd tune into, I would hold an object of the child, and I'd be able to tune into the spirit that way, or it would be through a family member, and I helped police solve many, many cases. And I've also done things in readings which have been spectacular, where I've brought through family members, like let's say someone was adopted, their real family comes through, their birth mother and father come through, and the person checks out the records and finds them that way. And I remember once they said, go to I think it was Mission Hospital, and you'll find the records for us. And sure enough, the person did that. It was spectacular. So that happens. That does happen. Things happen that way. Or a brother they didn't know they had. I did a reading for this gentleman close to 30 years now. I said, there's a Michael here, and he says, you'd know me as your brother. And he said, I don't know what you're speaking of. And he was from England. And he said, I don't know what you're speaking of. I said, well, there's a gentleman here. He said, you can think of me as your brother. So this man I was reading for was so upset about it. He went and called his aunt back in England. And she said, yes, your mother had a baby before you named Michael, but he died 3 days later. And she never wanted to talk about it again. So this now is 60 years old. So all of these years. So things like that do come through. Mm-hmm. Quite interesting.
That is just really
Keeps
cool.
me going. Yeah, very cool. How could you stop doing stuff like that? I mean, come on. Better than National Enquirer, it really is.
I know. It sounds so juicy.
It's such good gossip, let me tell you.
All right, James, so we
yeah.
have, I'm going to say 4 minutes left, and I'm going to be really super tacky.
And just if people
me?
know if they want to contact me, by the way, can we just mention my website for them? Is that okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go there now. Okay. And then you can say something about me.
Okay. Yes, Leo. Van Praagh, VANPRAAGH.com. And on there I have a calendar page where I'm going to be around the country in tours, cheap tickets, and people are wondering. And I have a store page where people can buy all my books. And I have a great chat room, which everybody's in there right now. I have 25 people in there right now. And it's all free, and people please just join the community. There we go. And I want to thank you.
And the new book is Growing Up in Heaven.
Growing Up in Heaven. The eternal connection between parent and child. And it's for everybody. It's not just parents. It's the soul. So it's really for everybody. And that's on my website.
It has wonderful stories in it.
Great stories. Great soul stories, I call them.
Okay. Anything juicy? Do I got the spooks hanging around me?
Okay. Would you like to contact someone that passed over?
On game, I've never done this. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I've never done
Okay. Is your mother's mother on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, because I have her on your interesting shows on your right side, and I want to ask you, geographically they were separated, but when they passed over, was she living in a different place?
Yes.
Okay, because I know that, and I feel a while ago this happened, and someone has either passed with a heart condition or there's a heart problem. Do you know if there was a heart problem with this lady, or is there a heart problem currently?
There was another relative that passed from a heart problem, but not anyone that...
Female?
No.
No. So this would be a heart problem. Your mother's still alive, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if it's not this lady, her mother, then your mother has a heart problem. So check it out. You're going to have to ask your mother. Now, when I say problem, I don't know if it's arrhythmia, but it's something that needs to be looked at, okay? Your mother also tends to keep things from you. You know that, Rita. She tends to keep
say that again?
Your mother tends to keep things from you. Yeah?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And who plays the piano or played the piano when you were younger?
Just about everyone in my family.
Okay. Because this grandmother wants me to talk about the piano, and I don't know if you had to forced to take lessons of piano, but she's talking about music and how this is interesting, very much music was a part of your lives when you were younger. And you knew her, didn't you? She was alive when you were alive, right?
Yes. Actually, the grandmother you're talking about used to sing in the church, and they made LPs.
Next to the organ? Next to the organ, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
Because she's some of the keyboards, that's why. I like this lady's hair, by the way. She's very much into getting her hair done the right way. It always looks the same. Can't move it. So much hairspray. I'm like... And the man is shorter than her. There's a man sitting next to her who's shorter than she is, just by a little bit, who comes in holding her hand. So I'm not sure it's her grandfather or a brother of hers, but there's a man there like that, okay? And there's an M initial with the name as well. So it says Marianne or Marilyn. Mary. Who's that, please? Is that her?
That would be my grandmother with the cardboard hair.
Oh, there you go. That's Mary. Okay, that's Mary. And I don't know if you're going to be going toward a boat ride or a sailboat or something on the ocean or in the Gulf or something with a boat, but you will be. She said to me, you will be, and she's telling me that. To tell you, okay?
Okay. Cool. Okay. We like that.
And you can continue to write. You do a lot of writing. You should continue to do the writing. Right? Finish the book.
Finish the book. Okay, Grandma, I got the message.
Is that right? Okay,
James, there's the music, which means you're off the hook. But
great
job.
Thanks.
I would love to have you back down the road, but I will let you go for now. All right. Bye, James.
Bye-bye now.
That's James von Praagh. His website is vonpraagh.com. His book is Growing Up in Heaven. And then next week, we're going to be speaking to, who are we speaking to? Oh, Steve Mueller, about the people of the Great Pyramid, and I played the wrong thing, so let me change the music here, because I screwed up. Oopsie. Wrong music file, but it'll be coming up here in 1 second. Yeah, now we can go to the commercial break. That was just so exciting. Oh, my God. He hit. All right, James, you're amazing. Anyway, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We'll be back with Nick Redfern after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.